Okay, good morning, everybody. And Sawabona, that's that Zulu greeting that reaches across space and time, heart to heart, mind to mind, that says, I see you and I connect with you. And we are here together by divine appointment to co-create sacred space together. And if that resonates with you, then I invite you to say, Yabo Sawabona. And again, that's that reaching across space and time, heart to heart, mind to mind, for rich connection. And happy Halloween. And Halloween actually means hallowed eve or holy eve. And it's one of the most sacred seasons in the Christian and secular calendar. And that's certainly understandable if you go, what? It's not a sacred holiday, it's a secular holiday. And I would suggest that it was the first one to be totally commercialized and taken over to the point where we no longer recognize it as a sacred holiday. And my invitation to is to claim it back. So unity, a positive path for spiritual living. Happy Halloween? What? We do the spiritual work so the things that haunt us can finally rest in peace. And it's when we finally get through those fears and finally let go of the things that need to be let gone and let die the things that need to die, that we have space for, and we have the enthusiasm for, and that we have the life for living life full on. So to sort of give further credibility to this whole idea of why Halloween is such a sacred holiday, consider the three great mysteries in life. And they also happen to be the three spiritual experiences most cited if you ask someone who is secular and not prone to spiritual experiences in general, or even just sort of the average Joe person. And they, generally speaking, are around births. If you've held your newborn child and experienced the miracle of new life, or around deaths. Again, being present to the passing of someone and feeling the spiritual connection or the depth and profoundness of that experience. And then the third one is the mission around mission and purpose, or around connection with nature in those everyday magical moments that we experience with nature. So I love how you can kind of sum all that up in a tombstone. With your name, that is the label that you wear in physical form in this expression in this lifetime. The birth date and your death date, which is the date that you arrived here and the date that you depart from physical form. And then, of course, that magical dash in the middle, which is the sum total of all our experiences. So these three big mysteries are really kind of summed up in that. And it's really all about living a great life so that you can truly rest in peace, both nightly as well as over the term of your whole lifetime. Consider the three big 40-day holy day seasons. We have Advent, which is birthing of the new light. It's a 40-day holiday, starting with Advent, and then there's the 3 days of the holiday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day, and then there's Epiphany after that, because it's a spiritual process, so you don't do it in a day, it takes time, 40 days, 40 metaphysically meaning as long as it takes. And then we have Lent, mission and purpose. Lent was when Jesus went into the desert for the 40 days and came out with his mission and purpose, ready to start his ministry. And part of that ministry then led to Easter, to teach us that we have nothing to fear in death. And that to take the sting out of death. And again, a 3-day holiday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which got put on to Monday, and followed by Pentecost. And then we have Exodus, which is Halloween, the harvest. It's All Souls Day. It goes all the way through Halloween, Thanksgiving, All Souls Day, and All Saints Day. And it's basically the opposite. It's the completion of the life cycle from birth to death. So it's the letting go end of things. So one of the things you might argue is Jesus never celebrated Halloween. Why should we celebrate Halloween? Where did that come from? And it's like, well, Jesus didn't celebrate Christmas or Easter either. He did, however, because he was Jewish, celebrate Rosh Hashanah, and which is all about the 10 days of repentance. And all the way, the end of that is Yom Kippur, which is, and my apologies if I have not pronounced those right, which is all about atonement. And it is the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. And also in the month of either September or October, depending on when it falls, you have the Harvest Festival and Year End, which is closure, endings, release, letting go, and that, setting yourself up for the new beginnings. So he was celebrating all the same things, just by a different title, different name. And we are hardwired through nature, particularly in the northern hemisphere, to celebrate these things at this time, because this is when nature is at the end of its growing season, and it's harvest time. It's releasing, letting go, and moving into the darkness, moving into the introversion of the winter season. Nothing has meaning but the meaning that we give it, from A Course in Miracles. So give it a meaning that works for you. Whoops. And consider this like a buffet that I'm presenting. So don't expect to be able to do it all. Do the same as you would at Christmas time, by picking and choosing the pieces that work for you, or the pieces that you're called to do in this time. So the reasons for the season, we just covered some of that letting go, and facing our fears, and forgiveness, and closure, and endings. It's sharing the harvest, which we've reduced now to trick or treat. It used to be that where it came from was you dress in a costume so you couldn't necessarily be identified by your neighbors, and those people that didn't have enough harvest or enough stores to carry them through the winter would go and knock on the doors of those who had abundance, and those who had abundance would share with their neighbors, without the stigma of having to ask or having to sort of the whole piety thing, or all of the stuff that can go with that. It was just sharing from the heart. Trick or treat's all the sweet end of that, but it is a cheapened version of it. So embracing the darkness, we're moving into longer nights and shorter days, and learning to celebrate the moon and see the stars. You can't see the stars in the brightness of day. And it's our opportunity to let our light shine from within. I love the pumpkin analogy. And if you've never carved a pumpkin as a fun and sacred activity, I highly encourage you to do it, because you're basically taking off the lid, scooping out the crap, scooping out the muck that isn't serving you well anymore, taking the seeds and gems out of that, and lighting your light to let your light shine through. Laying to rest your haunts, honoring the saints, the mystics, and the spiritual mentors on All Saints' Day, which was the Christian holiday that they tried to dump on top of Samhain, and it never really took off because it really didn't meet the need of honoring death, and then honoring the ancestors, or the day through the Day of the Dead, or All Souls Day. So let's bite into the big one right off the top. Why consider our mortality? Like, isn't that, we know that energy follows thought, and if I think too much about my death, am I bringing it on? Am I jinxing myself? Mine can go all sorts of crazy places with that. And the reality is, like, spoiler alert, you are going to die. We think we have lots of time, and the reality is we don't know that. And I can speak from real up close personal experience with this, my youngest sister, who's 5 years younger than me, passed away the week before Thanksgiving, and her husband's nephew, or her nephew-in-law, was killed in a car accident just a couple of weeks ago. So we don't know how long we have. And if you think it's difficult to have those difficult conversations about last wishes and how do you want your affairs wrapped up and all that kind of thing, at like on an annual basis, kind of like changing your batteries in your fire alarm, that is nothing compared to having to have those difficult conversations when you're in the midst of facing and dealing with, death is here on my doorstep, or not getting that heads up or that warning that just all of a sudden you're there and then you're not. And like I said, the nephew is 25 years old. He's the first of his generation to pass, and my sister was the first of our generation to pass. So we don't know how much time. When we make friends with death, when we come to terms with our mortality, we have the freedom to live full on because we're not afraid. We don't have loose ends that need to be tied up that are outstanding in a horrific way. Sure, it's not our preference to go today or tomorrow, but at the same time, the having any day be a good day to die is a very freeing way to live. It's easier to face our haunted house, to face those fears within us, if we've made friends with death. We've come to terms with our own mortality. And if we make a habit of doing this on an annual basis, one, it means that whenever the subject comes up, if you don't want to deal with it, you can say, I'll deal with that in October. That's when I deal with that. So that you don't obsess about it all the time. It's just, okay, one awkward moment and we'll make it through it. The other thing is, if you're doing it on an annual basis, you did this process last year and you lived and it was fine, and you did it the year before and you lived and you were fine, and you did it the year before, so that you get more comfortable with it and you get more comfortable with the discussions around it, so that it's not this big taboo. Like right now, our culture is so good at sanitizing death and hiding it from us that we don't do endings and ceremony around endings and embracing endings very well. So one of the ways to become friends with death is, first of all, to upgrade your image of death. And whether you upgrade your image of death to a beautiful angel that you can chat with, or whether you make it a cute little Grim Reaper, or whether you make it a Valkyrie from Norse mythology that carries the warrior off to Valhalla, or whether you make it Brad Pitt as Joe Black in Meet Joe Black, or whether you make it the angel of death from Touched by an Angel, or whether you talk to Jesus, or whether you talk to the stone angel, or whether you talk to someone who is near and dear to you that has already passed over. It really doesn't matter what image you choose. Make it an image that you're comfortable with, so that you can have that chat with death and go over, discuss with the fears, discuss the things that you want to live. Give death your reasons for wanting to carry on your life. And if you're wanting death, if you're, flirting with suicide and having those thoughts, have that conversation with death too. Why am I still here? And what is my purpose? Where do I go to within myself to make this meaningful and rich for me? So whatever that conversation needs to be, just having it. And whether you do that through journaling or sitting in quiet contemplation, again, doesn't really matter. What matters is that we do it. Death is the exit, and it's not the opposite of life, it's the opposite of birth. So getting really clear in our minds that we are both spiritual and physical, and when we lay down the physical, it returns to the Mother Earth from which we have it borrowed. It's not the extent of who we are. And who we are is so much more than that, and it's more than our thoughts. Jesus taught us that life is eternal and that there is no reason to fear death. Having that conversation with the Christ essence within us, to reinforce that within us so that we're more secure in the fullness of our humanity. Unity principle number 1, it's all one. Unity principle number 2, we are in appearance, separate entity from that. And it is an appearance. We are a part of that one big wholeness. So I'd like to read you The Dash by Linda Ellis. Oh, and I'm going to have to switch glasses, sorry. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth, and spoke the following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about it long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way that others feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? And really, that is a huge opportunity in this holy day, at this time of year. So the seasonal practices that we can take on, we can have those crucial conversations with maybe it's parents or maybe it's kids about either what they want for their funeral arrangements, or what they want in terms of their requests, what they want in terms of celebrations, or what we would prefer for our own passing. Knowing where the will is always a helpful thing. And those can be really brutal, difficult conversations, especially if things are pending. But if you have this conversation annually, it goes a whole lot easier. And I can tell you personally, I am so profoundly grateful and appreciative of my parents who had all of their affairs in order. Wills were in place. We knew where insurance policies were. All of the paperwork was done. When you're grieving, you don't want to have to deal with all of those mechanics, and knowing what their beliefs are and what's important to them. Again, those conversations are so much easier if you've got a little practice on them. Update your own will, and if you don't have one, get one. Not having one doesn't guarantee you're not going to die, or that dying will wait till you get one. It just makes it difficult for the people that are left behind. Update your bucket list. Have a look at what are the reasons that I want to still be on earth. What's important to me? What is my values? Am I living into them? The reaching out to make those connections or to heal those old wounds. Are there relationships that, if you knew that you were dying tomorrow, or the other person was dying tomorrow, that you would want to clear up or tidy in loose ends? Do it now, don't wait. Forgive. To not forgive is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't let them off the hook, it lets you off the hook. So, you're going to have to do it sooner or later. You may as well make it sooner than later. Decluttering, letting go what no longer serves. Take a look at the past. For some of us, our past is a solid platform on which we can dance, on which our life like jumps forward and lives with that zeal. And for others of us, our past is like quicksand that sucks us down. And it's how do you convert, make that past a more solid platform so that you can have it, that it's not the wounding piece that is there haunting you. And the relationship, tending to relationships. So current relationships that mean so much. I mean, there was somebody that speculated that if the end of the earth was coming, the one thing that would happen is all the phone lines would be chock full of people calling other people to say that they love them. Now is a better time to do that. And what causes us to stop living before we die? And we all know people that have reached, something has happened in their life, whether it's a loss of purpose, a loss of their job, or a loss of identity, whether it's the person who, has lost their partner, or whether it's the caregiver that no longer has anyone to care for, or a woman experiencing empty nest syndrome. Whether it's, there we go. Whether it's extreme grief, or whether it's trauma, or fear, all of these things can cause us to get stuck in time or leave a big chunk of us behind, or facing disease. And if we can deal with these things, if we can face these fears or these calls for love, as hard as they are to deal with, if we can deal with them, then suddenly life opens up. It's like what cracks us open to let the light shine through in a bigger way. It's the crack open to an expanded life, an expanded experience. So the haunting, those neglected aspects of our life and fear, our haunted house, when you think of a haunted house, it's the house that's been neglected in the neighborhood, right? And if you think of metaphysically your neighborhood being all those aspects of your life within you, and outside of you, your relationships and your finances and your beliefs and just all of it, all that makes up your life, and those pieces that are neglected and the parts of you that you don't love, can't love, wish weren't there, would prefer other, those are the pieces that start to accumulate in your haunted house. Often the haunted house doesn't have a latch on the front door, and it's that idea of not healthy boundaries. And for repairing that, for fixing up the haunted house, setting healthy boundaries, like an atmosphere around your body, your aura, kind of like an atmosphere around the planet, so that you see negativity that comes at you either bouncing off or burning up on entry, so that you are, nothing but good can come to you and nothing but good can go from you. It suddenly brightens up. When you are having to deal with your own haunted house and the haunts that are in it, what do we know about haunted houses from all the movies that we've watched and all the scary stories we've ever been told? One thing is, we often do it at night because it's dark. And it's like, well, why would you do it at night when the day is less scary? And it's like, well, part of it is because the darkness is Sophia, is wisdom. It's that yin yang piece that of spirit unity principle number one, where it's all wholeness, and it's really about embracing all of it, including all of ourselves, including the stuff we would prefer otherwise. So yes, is our past a platform to dance on our quicksand? The haunted house, if it starts to get too big, it can start taking over our life. Then clutter can take over and fears can take over, and we become paralyzed and stuck in the dark and isolated. So when we have to go into our haunted house, if most of our life is working well and there's just those few little haunts that bother us, what do we know about going in there? Well, first of all, you want to take the light with you. So make sure you're connected to your Christ light within. Let that shine forth from you. All of the things that you face in your haunted house are just a cry for love, and reminding yourself of that, and reminding yourself that no matter what you face in there, it is just something to be integrated, something, it's a blessing that the blessing hasn't been identified yet. And so taking that Christ itself with you is critical. And it's all about integrating it all into wholeness. So what are some of the things that we can encounter in our haunted house? One of those things is, the mummy, which is those wounds that we carry from the past, and we keep picking the scab off, and we don't let them heal, and we keep wrapping another bandage on it, but we have no intention of healing. We wear it as our identity. So to heal that, we ask what it will take for us to let it heal, to stop picking at it, to embrace the blessings from the lessons that it has there to teach us, asking it, what's the blessing here, and how can I move beyond this? Calling upon that Christ within us. We've got our 12 powers that can meet these ghostly ghouls and so forth. So that's another way of approaching it. Another common haunt is the vampire that sucks the lifeblood out of everything. And maybe that's a relationship, maybe that's a task, maybe that's a job. You know what it is in your life that is sucking the life force out of you. And, taking the time to address it and looking at it and going, yep, I see you there sucking the life force out of me. I have the option of doing something about it, or I have the option of going, yep, I see you, I love you, I bless you, and we'll deal with you another time. Halloween is all about meeting these things head on and acknowledging them and healing the ones that are ready to be healed. And blessing and allowing for, accepting, embracing, sending love to, having compassion for all those others that are still sitting there. Other ones, the tech zombie, where you know that you're spending so much time on the screen that you're not living life and connecting to nature and connecting to the life that you're here to live. Or maybe it's the busy zombie, where you're going through the motions of life and there's just so much to do and you're so busy that you're not living anymore. Or maybe it's the info zombie, where you're letting everybody else do your thinking for you and getting all of your beliefs and all your thoughts from whatever media you're plugged into. So finding ways of connecting to your own truth to get the life force flowing back in. Ghosts of the past, ghosts of dreams that haven't been realized are other haunts that we can find in our haunted house. And these are just a few of them. And the invitation is to, have the courage to meet whoever they are, whether you journal about them or whether you meditate on them or contemplate them or discuss them with friends, or, go play with them out on Halloween night, standing in other people's yards with all kinds of fun, spooky, scary stuff, remembering that our fear was intended to be fun. It's only when we take ourselves and everything too seriously, when we forget that there's nothing serious going on here, it's a game, that's when it becomes suffering and painful. So why celebrate All Saints' Day on November 1st? Respect, appreciation, inspiration, and being in the presence of the vibe. There are so many great beings. Jesus was one, and there were so many others, whether, Paramahansa Yogananda or Baha'u'llah, like there's just on and on and on. Pick your favorite and spend time with them on this day, thanking them and honoring them, or praying with them, or being with them, or learning more about them. Learn about a new one you've never heard of, and learn what their life and how their life blessed the people that from their time and space. And why celebrate All Souls Day on November 2nd? Respect, appreciation, knowing ourselves better, because all of those memes and genes have carried forth to be the hand of cards that we've been dealt for this life. To pass on our history to our children, so that they know where we came from. To heal, to forgive, to reconcile, to decide what history we pass forward consciously, and what parts of it we say, no, this one stops here. I'm healing this one from here forward, making it conscious. And how do we do that? We can journal, we can write a letter to the loved one that has passed over. We can play, we can eat, we can drink, we can dance with the loved ones that are alive now, and include stories of the ones that have passed. We can set a place at the table for the loved ones that have passed. We can hang photos, and we can go through photo albums. We can walk, we can talk, we can tell stories. We can vision for the future, and looking at what we're going to carry forward. We can listen to music. We can donate in their name. We can spruce up the cemetery. We can leave flowers at the grave. Whatever works for us to reconnect and honor the shoulders that we stand on, because we truly stand on strong shoulders, and they weren't perfect. And that is there for us to carry forward or not, consciously or unconsciously. Give us this day our daily bread. Jesus spoke this as part of the Lord's Prayer in two different books in the Bible. And so often that is taught as, give us the minimum that it takes to survive. And I don't believe that Jesus meant that. And I heard this incredibly wonderful segment. I posted the link to it in the chat area. The idea of, and roses too. So it's not just the essentials of life, it's also the things that feed our soul. It's the music, it's the art, it's the hobbies, and it's our passions, and it's our relationships, and it's our social time, and it's singing, and it's dancing, and it's art, and it's creativity, and it's all of those things that keep the heart from starving. And we talk about standing in solidarity, and bread for all. And that idea of bread for all and roses too was a slogan from the 30s, from the women that were standing up for workers' rights. And I so feel the resonance of that in the times that we're living right now, to find ways to claim and live into our sovereignty within, but also to find little ways that we can create the joyous, zeal-filled, enthusiastic, abundant, prosperous, fulfilling lives that we're meant to live. And with that, then, I invite you into meditation. Happy Halloween, and we're headed for our haunted house. Everyone welcome. And I just invite you to settle into your chair, relax, and closing your eyes. That's comfortable. Feeling into the one power and one presence. Calling upon the Christ nature, our highest aspect, our guides, angels of support, angels for protection, Holy Spirit, whatever resonates with you, knowing that whatever thought of limitation or fear that we come up with, Holy Spirit has an answer. Courage, forgiveness, healing, protection. Creative source energy sees none of these things as necessary because there is no injury to begin with. There is only perfection. But in the duality of experience in 3D, these limitations are there or appear to be there. And the Holy Spirit gives us the tools to heal that separation, calling us home. Going with whatever accompaniment, whatever protections you need. I invite you to take a few moments in the silence to be in your Halloween party in your haunted house, partying with those fears that usually scare the tar out of you, knowing that this is their day off. This is their day to party and celebrate, be accepted and be loved, and they're just glad you showed up and care about them. Take a few moments to listen to any that would speak to you. Any that you would like to speak to. Greet them with compassion and love. And if you can't, feel the ones that are with you, the angels, the Christ within. It can greet them with compassion and love, acceptance and healing. They may look and sound gruff. They're really just calling for your love and acceptance and telling you that there's blessings if you're willing to integrate them and help them to healing by inviting them into the Christ light. This time and this awareness, we are truly grateful. Know that you can return here at any time, that this healing is available at any time, and that Halloween can be the holiest time of the year. In loving gratitude for all of it. Amen.